This is the continuation of the first part of talk on professionalism in a job interview, and it's basically a continuation of my talk on that particular topic under the edition of Science and Technology. Now, I was trying to emphasize on the necessity of resume or biodata in a job interview, and I went on to say that it's not quite necessary. I thought it's quite unnecessary for that matter to carry a job job resume, because what exactly needs to be gathered along with the candidate is the right approach and right thinking for the job in question. The way a person speaks, the way he grooms himself, and the mannerism he or she shows towards the recruiter and towards the job that is basically in question. It goes on to speak a lot about the personality of the candidate and about the attitude of the candidate, and not just a piece of paper. And I thought a piece of paper containing the details of the candidate is not quite enough to judge the requirement and the ability of the candidate. I thought it's quite unnecessary, and even if the resume is presentable, is professional in nature, it's not quite enough to justify the candidature or the ability of the candidate. In fact, it's basically a piece of paper and nothing else. I thought usage of a photograph is another very unprofessional way of hiring and recruiting. I mean, usage of biodata and photograph, I thought that should be the last stage when the candidate is basically recruited and hired and has basically been offered the job. That should be the last step, asking for photographs, asking for other details of the candidate, so that the necessary information can be fitted, can be updated in the software or in the ERP software or the SAP software, whatever is in there with the company in question. So I thought usage of photograph and resume is the last, or rather should be the last stage. If at all resume is required, I thought photograph is at times necessary to make sure that the candidate or the person who is recruited and the employee who is recruited gets an ID containing or comprising his or her photograph for identification purpose. I thought even if there is no eye contact with the recruiter or with the interviewer, a person can do his best to ensure that he is one of the most eligible and more professional candidate for the job, and he can indeed deliver the necessary required for the job. Well, there are certain HR managers who basically emphasize on the necessity of eye contacts. I thought that it is quite not necessary. And what is necessary, as I said, is professionalism as well as right approach towards the job in question. If a person is indeed interested in a job, he would indeed do his best to justify his eligibility and his capability, and as well as his ability towards the job, and not just using a piece of paper or trying to make a contact with the eye of the recruiter to justify his eligibility. In fact, that is quite not essential for recruitment purpose. What is required is the ability to communicate well, as well as the ability to show the right approach towards the job. Group discussions as well as self-introductions are basically the other two methods of judging the ability of the candidate for a job. And I thought even if there is no resume, even if there is no curriculum vitae or CV with the candidate, or if the candidate is not carrying any of this piece of paper containing his details, he can in fact go on to introduce himself, go on to try and make sure that he is basically the one who is basically the most suitable for the job in question, and he can do so by various ways and by various methods, and not just by using a piece of paper. If the details of the candidates who are basically selected or who are basically being considered for the job, it can be basically be updated in a particular software. There is this HR software available under ERP. There is this Word and Excel software available as well. There is this several other Microsoft Windows. Under Microsoft Windows, there are several tools which basically help in ensuring the proper data save reservation so that the data is not lost or is not misplaced for that matter. But with the advent of science and technology, things have become very easy, and the old age method of submission of curriculum vitae or biodata should be should be rather abolished and should be done away with immediately, because it's indeed not quite necessary for a professional job interview to be conducted in that way. And basically, what needs, as I said, is a professional approach towards the job in question by the recruiter as well as the person who is basically getting recruited.